Celeste Jacobs Richards from Eswatini, and I'm a clinical psychologist in private practice for 13 years now as a psychologist, as well as doing work in the wellness field in corporates. So I'm going to look at and present what happens if we don't treat PTSD simultaneously. I think we need to recognize that generally PTSD is a progressive illness, and it's probably not going to go away on its own without any treatment. We've just heard some of the symptoms for PTSD, and so when I explain the things that could go wrong if left untreated, you'd be able to link it back to the symptoms to make sense of it. The problems for the individual will probably be holistic, meaning it will be social, occupational, psychological, as well as physical if left untreated. So I've tried to break it down for the sake of ease and for it to be more articulate. We'll look at the psychological part of what would happen if it's untreated. People can then end up with comorbid diagnosis, such as panic disorder, depression, substance abuse or substance dependence, and it can lead to fatal situations such as suicidal ideation, suicidal attempts, or successful suicide. And we can understand that based on the avoiding, the numbing, hyperarousal, as well as the behavior change and mood swings, which was spoken about in the symptoms. We can also then look at the occupational side of a person's life. If a person's not doing well and they're always anxious or they're irritable and they are numbing and avoiding dealing with stuff, you can see how this could affect them at work. So there could be loss of a job, loss of income, due to not being able to concentrate, not being able to perform because of memory problems, absenteeism because of feeling unwell. So we can see how one's occupation or academic path can be affected by untreated PTSD. Socially, based on the symptoms of anxiety and obviously somebody having mood swings and not feeling good in any situation or worried about having flashbacks, being hypervigilant or hyper-aroused, we could definitely see that impacting relationships, whether intimate family, friends, work colleagues, holistically relationships would be affected. A person would probably want to isolate and be on their own if they're not feeling great. There may be a lot of fear because there's a lot of anxiety linked to PTSD. It can also lead to conflict in relationships based on perspective. That obviously is going through a filter of anxiety. There's also the issue of sleep and appetite being impacted, which I think then obviously leads to the physical effects and the medical health effects of untreated PTSD. We all know that a lack of sleep and lack of food is just obviously one of the most unhealthiest things and the basic coping skills for any form of mental illness. And so we can see how that would impact somebody's physical health. And then also if somebody's in a constant state of hyperarousal or hypervigilance or anxiety, that definitely will impact the endocrine system and probably the brain in the long term if it's not treated. So I've tried to summarize and touch on the different areas to show how overall an individual who does not have treatment for PTSD timelessly will have an